all units proceed to your post assignments. All units proceed to your post assignments.
I think you're working on Substack Notes, which to many seems to be an attempt to offer something similar to Twitter.
The way I think of this is that I think the era of the social network, as we know it, is ending. I think that a lot of the online media platforms, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, are sort of pulling in this one direction, right? The ad-supported business model is kind of forcing everyone to turn into TikTok that's in that world. And I think it creates this huge opportunity in a different direction that's not about kind of like grabbing eyeballs and attention at all costs, but instead is about, making things that people deeply value, letting people connect to things they trust. So I think all of online media is basically either going to have to turn into TikTok or it's going to have to turn into Substack in the next little bit. And Substack Notes is sort of our play to bring the easy sort of sharing, the short form, the ability to recommend anything to the subscription network that is Substack. And we're tremendously excited about it.
So when we were in Texas, I think it was on the 29th of April, give or take a day, or of March, I mean, right after doing the Alex Jones show, Scott's Twitter account was suspended yet again. And I think, Scott, you feel sort of like I do in general. Twitter is necessary. It's annoying to have to deal with this. It's tedious to have to deal with this. And, because it's so tedious, I didn't immediately jump on it to do anything. Also, I was hoping that they would just restore your account quickly. But it hasn't happened quickly. So last night, I threw a Twitter fit, and I made a new version of that video that maybe got Elon Musk's attention previously. We don't really know for sure. But I did a new version of it and tweeted at him a few times and to some key people such as Matt Taibbi. Not that it's his fault, but Matt Taibbi is one of the people who has been releasing the Twitter files. And he just did an interview on MSNBC yesterday in which the host, I forgot his name, Mehdi somebody, asshole. Yeah, really got into it. And so that was all of it. And one of the things that Mehdi said to him was, well, hey, you're afraid of, you never criticize Elon Musk. So my attitude was like, there's a few different tweets I put out, but one of them was, I'm basically with Matt, not Mehdi, but he may have a point. So how about it, Matt? Why don't you show that you are not afraid to criticize Elon, or at least challenge him in a constructive way when it's valid, and make some noise about Scott Ritter's account? He's a credible person. What's going on? So anyway, got some attention. And then I wake up today and I see Matt Taibbi has a new post on Substack, and he's saying, I'm going to leave Twitter. And the reason is Twitter is now blocking, according to Matt Taibbi, Substack posts. And, the whole idea is to use Twitter to promote stuff that we do on Substack. So, all right, I said, geez, that's pretty strange. And then I went and tried it out, and I was able to post a Substack, your latest post. I just tried it, and it wasn't blocked. But then somebody else said, well, it's not blocked because we have a custom domain, scottritterextra.com. It's apparently blocked only for people who, would have like scottritter.substack.com. They're able to block that, but not this. But anyway, it seems pretty weird. And instead of complaining about Twitter all the time, why not look for a reason for an alternative? And there hasn't been any alternative that appealed to me. I don't know about you, but all the other ones so far have been either right-wing or left-wing. And the great thing about Twitter has been it's kind of like everybody. And that's what we want, right? And Substack is for everybody. It's not right-wing or left-wing. And they're now coming out with this notes feature. And who knows how it's going to work out. But Substack is enormously successful. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this could be a game changer, and maybe people will move over to Substack and use notes, which is going to be, sort of the equivalent of tweets, short form stuff. What do you think?
Well, first of all, Twitter has always been sort of a weird thing. My daughter, when I wrote the book previous to this, or actually, gosh, how long ago? This was a while ago. Maybe the Deal Breaker book. My daughter Victoria said, "Hey, you got to get on Twitter. You got to promote this thing." And I went, "No, I'm not going on Twitter. I don't want to tweet." And she, as we were driving, I was going to a Spartan race in Palmerton, so as we're driving there, and I'm trying to get mentally prepared for running up and down mountains and killing myself, she created a Twitter account, and we began to tweet. And it was awkward. I mean, at that time, I think it was 144 characters. So we're talking like really short form stuff. And it takes a while to learn how to tweet. I mean, it's an art form.
It is.
But I started having fun with it because, you start following all these people, and some of them are idiots like Michael McFall. And I really enjoyed just slamming Michael McFall and others. And I got pretty good at the 104. And then Twitter went and gave me 280. And I was like, wow. And the next thing you know, I mean, we were watching.
That's known as the loquacious version of Twitter.
Yeah, the loquacious version. Went from 52 followers to 100 followers. I got to 500, and we were like having a party. Wow, 500 people are following me. Yeah. And then this war started, and boom, off it goes to the races. And we got up to 88,000. They banned me the first time, and we got up to 92,000. They banned me the second time. And this time we got up close to 115. I think we were just short of 115,000 when they banned me the third time. And it's just stupid. I mean, here's the deal. If it's a free, you've heard me before. I have no sympathy for Elon Musk, and I don't like Elon Musk because he's a useless piece of shit. Excuse my language. I know, Marina, I apologize. I'm not supposed to swear tonight, so I'm supposed to be really calm. But he's totally useless. He's a man who says things, but he doesn't follow through. I don't want to hear any crap about it takes time, it takes this, it takes that. You're either free speech or you're not. And let me give you a pro hint, Mr. Elon Musk. When you let NAFO trolls own your platform, because that's what happened here. I didn't tweet anything wrong. I followed every rule to the T. There was nothing wrong with anything I tweeted. I mean, you can say I don't agree with Scott, but I didn't violate a rule. I didn't do anything. I've been quiet on Bucha. I haven't talked about it because
you've been a good boy.
I've been a good boy, a compliant little 280 character twit, and and all of a sudden, bam, I'm banned for what? For going on Alex Jones. Hey, Elon Musk, if you're going to try and control where I can go and who I can speak to, stick it in your ear. Notice that I didn't swear.
Yeah. I'm moving more in your direction. I mean, I don't know if he's doing this intentionally or not, but he's at the least he's guilty of negligence. He hasn't fixed it. He's not explaining it. He's ignoring it.
If he doesn't understand what NAFO has done to his platform, okay, because there is Elon.
By the way, we're streaming on Twitter right now, so
Good. Hey, Twitter, listen to me, guys. NAFO. Hey, all you NAFO guys watching. I really have no use for you. You guys are cowardly pieces of turds. I just wish you'd do it like men. Come to my face, throw a punch at me, and see where it gets you. I don't mean that because I'm a nonviolent person. I believe in peace, love, and happiness, and hugging. Jeff knows this. But, you guys, they've broken the code on the algorithm, and they now know that if they flood Twitter, an account, with basically they like you, and then they unlike you, and if enough of that happens, it's like hitting
it's a weird thing. Yeah, it should be a solvable problem, and if it's not, Elon Musk should explain it instead of saying nothing at all.
Explain it.
I should have grabbed my tweets. By the way, that was pretty much the angle I was tweeting last night. I was saying you're letting a bunch of NAFO eunuchs run Twitter. What's wrong with
eunuchs? That's an insult to eunuchs, because eunuchs implied at one time they had balls. These people never had balls. They're just useless turds. They've corrupted a beautiful little puppy, the Shiba Inu, and they go forth, and they're just.
All right, they don't have I would like to issue an apology. I would like to issue an apology to real eunuchs.
Yeah, I mean, eunuchs deserve some credibility, but these guys don't. But my point is, I think. I mean, look.
Are you with me on the ideas? Like, well, if we're going to go someplace else, you want to be where the action is and where you're getting all sides, and not just right wing.
I put a lot of time and effort into Twitter. I put a lot of time into Twitter. I actually spent more time than anybody thought I should spend on Twitter, carefully carefully selecting the tweets I'm going to respond to, putting it in there, getting it out there. And each tweet wasn't just a slam. It was supposed to get people thinking. And I tried to tweet in relationship to something I wrote to create this whole messaging thing. I mean, it may not have been perfect. There's people are going, Scott, I didn't see any of that. Okay, but I tried. That's all I'm saying.
It was thoughtful, intentional.
Yeah,
there is an art to it. You're right.
And the idea was that, look, we have this. Now here I am. I'm going to talk about things I don't want to talk about. We have this platform, ScottRitterExtra.com. We have Substack. And thanks to Jeff Norman, Substack has turned into a way that I can support my family. Jeff can support his family. We can support our family. We earn an income stream to it. And it's pretty
cool. All I need is a family.
Well, I'm your family, Jeff, so feel free.
Right.
Anytime you want. But the point is, but we've made a concerted effort to make Substack free, meaning that there's no paywall, there's nothing here. If you guys want it to get to it, get to it. That's the whole idea. But if you like what you see and understand, I mean, we'll talk about this later. I owed Jeff an article today. Writing is hard work, ladies and gentlemen. Writing is very, very hard work. And I thought when I got up this morning that I was going to finish this article, get it to Jeff in time to put out on Substack. It's been kicking my ass all day long. I'm going to get it done, Jeff. I'm almost done. But I mean, I have to write, rewrite. There's starts to stop. Writing's hard work. It takes a lot of time. And nobody pays me for it. And so it's literally
except the Substack audience does pay for it. Yeah.
Bingo. So now there are people in Substack that say, hey, we like what you write. So therefore, we're going to contribute. We're going to subscribe. And that's beautiful. And we love you. Twitter, with its following, gave me an opportunity to reach out to 114,000 people at a whack. And believe me, if only, if 100 of them subscribe, I'm not allowed to say what I'm going to say, but Marina, I apologize. Baby gets a new pair of shoes because it means that I can pay my bills.
Figure of speech. It's a figure.
It's a figure of speech. I know she hates it, but because it implies like I'm spoiling her. I do spoil her.
Her
but the point is, it's about feeding a family, paying a mortgage, paying electricity bills, living life, and.
Right. So Twitter and work very, very nicely hand in hand with Substack. And
they took it away from us, Jeff. They took 114,000 followers away. But
if more people,
it's a body slam to our income generating capability.
It definitely is. And now maybe I'm going to call off my plans to start a family. But the other thing is maybe
a family now because Elon Musk just cut your balls off.
Well, I don't want to rush into anything. I'm still a little young, but maybe other influential and interesting people besides Matt Taibbi will follow him, and this Substack Notes thing will become a big deal. I don't know. I'm being optimistic. So,
well, Jeff, why don't we join Substack Notes and do it? Because Twitter's not doing us a damn thing. It's just sitting there, pissing me off every day when I log on. It says you are permanently suspended. You have violated the rules. I didn't violate your rules, Elon Musk. You're a piece of shit. You either believe in free speech or you don't. I'm sick and tired of your posturing. I'm sick and tired of you pretending. Either do it or die. Not die. I'm sorry. No violence. Do it or go away. Bring somebody in who can do it. Fix the frickin' problem. You surrendered to NAFO, you son of a bitch. You surrendered to the most pathetic pond scum life forms the planet has ever known. A bunch of she-knew, hyping up cowards who won't give their real names. Most of them are AI. And Marina keeps telling me, don't get mad at them, Scott. They're just computer generated. You're just getting pissed off at, algorithms. And she's right. But so, okay, I'm calming down. I'm all for it, Jeff, because Twitter's not doing us anything right now, and it's just it's a useless platform. Really is a useless platform.
Well, I'm not going to spew the venom that you spewed, but I'm a lot closer towards your point of view now, and I'm not going to defend Elon Musk anymore.
Do I get a beer?
Well, the very first day, they took over, you were saying, there's no process. I think you were being unreasonable then. Free speech. It's not like you flick a switch. But now that this time has elapsed, now I'm moving towards your corner. It's no longer an excuse.
There's no process. Free speech.
Yeah, that's what you said. Remember, no such thing as a process. So I was thinking to myself, well, maybe he needs to hire a secretary. Maybe he hasn't even moved a lamp into his desk, put on his desk yet. He may have a couple of things to do. But anyway, all right. So let's move to our, yeah. And also we should mention our YouTube audience is showering us with donations. So thank you to all of you who are doing that. We appreciate that, however it comes in. And this is the loquacious version of Ask the Inspector. On Tuesdays, we do the lightning round for an hour. Scott answers every question in 3 minutes or less. And on Friday nights, it's about 2 hours and no particular time limit. It's a lot more extensive. If you'd like to submit your question in advance, you can do it at scottritterextra.com. That's Substack, by the way. Have we mentioned that? And we also take questions live towards the latter part of the podcast. We're streaming live to Twitter, Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. But
we should point out, just so
excuse me for talking while you're interrupting.
Let
me just say one more thing. We can only because I don't want people who are on Rumble to go, why aren't my comments coming in? We can't insert the comments from those other outlets, only from YouTube and Facebook. Go ahead, Scott. I'll shut up.
Well, I apologize, Jeff. That was very rude of me.
Marina, control him.
Hey, why don't you put some more wine in that glass?
I learned how to use it.
Okay.
What a great prank this is. This was
a good prank. Ryan got you good. I just want to point out that we also have a Telegram family that's very loyal and very supportive. And Telegram's a good platform, and we shouldn't ignore Telegram.
All right. I agree. It's all, the Ritter family is diverse. Carl from Sweden comes in with our first question of the night. Please talk about the sources for the estimated death figures. My friend talks to me about 200,000 plus dead Ukrainians, but I can only find sources about 200,000 plus dead Russians. What are the more real numbers, and what are they based on?
I mean, pulling the issue of casualties in Ukraine for both sides, it becomes so politicized. It's crazy. On the one hand, you have Ukraine and the West trying to hype up, inflate the number of Russian casualties because they have a goal of generating domestic problems at home inside Russia so they want to create the impression that Russia is suffering horrific casualties. Hey, guys, you don't need to hype it up. They're suffering horrific casualties. I mean, the most recently leaked U.S. report, whether it's true or not, has a number that I find realistic, 16 to 17,000. If that doesn't just shock the living crap out of you, that's a lot of dead guys in 1 year. So you don't need to hype up the fact that Russia's suffering losses. Russia's suffering losses, big time losses, but that 16 to 17,000 is realistic based upon the nature of the fighting that's taking place in Ukraine. On the Ukrainian side, people are trying to say the Ukrainians only lost 16, 17. Are you high? Again, Ukraine's trying to minimize the losses, but the fact is they're much larger than that. A precise number is hard to come by. Colonel Doug McGregor, somebody who I respect, who oftentimes provides information that appears to be inside sourced, has spoken back in February of a conversation between General Zaluzhny and Mark Miley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where Zaluzhny admitted to 257,000 dead, around 83,000 missing, 60,000 of whom were presumed dead. That gives you a number up over 315,000 dead, which matches exactly what I've been saying. And this is why I brought it up. You see, I don't like relying on other people's numbers. I've told this story before, and I'm not going to bore you with it, but from October, November, December of 1990, I basically I ran a computer simulation of combat between Marines and Iraqis how the Marines were going to breach the Iraqi defensive lines. I built the whole Iraqi defensive position based upon satellite imagery. We terrain modeled it. Then I populated it with Iraqi order of battle, again, derived from the best intelligence. I did a lot of research into the history of the units, their commanders, logistics, communications, morale, different weapon systems that are done. We programmed the whole thing in. Then I did it with the Marines, and then we just ran computer simulations. And the reason why I bring this up is I did this every day. And this was in the lead up to a war. So there's no such thing as a weekend. There's no such thing as a holiday. We're getting ready to go to war. So every frickin' day, I ran computer simulations. And my brain started working like a stupid computer, meaning that I could, I could do it. And as we started manipulating the different inputs, I could just begin to visualize how it would have an impact on the battlefield. And after a while, I could just literally say, okay, if we're going to adjust this, this is what's going to happen. And pretty much that's what would happen. And I will say this, the last simulation we ran is the one that we ran before we sent the plan off to General Walt Boomer, who was the 4-star Marine Corps general in charge of Marine forces in the Gulf. And we said, this is the plan you should use when attacking the Wafra oil fields. And that's your best chance of success. The real battle unfolded pretty much exactly like we simulated. So I'd say we got it about right. And I bring all this up to say that when I look at Ukraine, this is just the way my brain works. Now, I know it's 1990s computer technology. The computers have got a lot better since then. And maybe I'm outdated. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Maybe this, that, and the other. It's all true. It could be. But when I crunch the numbers, when I look at the battles, I tend to get, I feel like I have an accurate assessment for what's taking place. So I've been saying for some time now, first I said 250,000, then I looked at some of the battles. And as we got into early 2023, I said, look, I think the Ukrainians are suffering around 320,000 dead. And people are going, that's just a wild ass number. And I'm like, yeah, well, I think it's good. And now Zaluzhny has supposedly leaked data to General Mark Miley that 275,000 dead with 60,000 missing, presumed dead. And when you add that up, you come right about where I was. So I like my numbers. I mean, I hate my numbers. I wish they were wrong. I wish nobody was dying in this amount, but I think my numbers are accurate. I think history will find out. One day this war will end. One day there will be an accounting, and one day we'll have a better grasp and understanding of what this war has cost. And it could turn out that I'm wrong. It could turn out that there's only 200,000 dead. There's only 100,000 dead. We will find out. But the bottom line is there's a lot of people dying in Ukraine right now, and the majority of them are Ukrainian. Anybody who thinks that the Russians are suffering heavier casualties than Ukrainians don't understand anything about this war. Yeah, I agree, Klaus. The number of missing is off the chart. But one of the reasons why it's off the chart is that the Ukrainians appear to be, and the Western media is starting to pick this up. The corruption of Ukraine is so mind-boggling. When you have Ukrainian officers who receive the pay for their soldiers and then do it the old school. I mean, Marine Corps used to do this too. When I joined the Marine Corps on payday, I literally would get in line with the rest of the Marines. I would show up at a desk where they had a paymaster. We had a guy called the paymaster, and he had a big old stack of dollar bills. And I would put down my ID card, and there were two guys with pistols staring at me, and he would take my ID card, verify that it's correct, and then he would go down the list, get my name, and it would give an amount of money that I got. This is before direct deposit. And he would take those bills out and count them out, hand them to me. I'd count them out. I'd salute smartly and take my pay and walk away. But the Marine Corps was honest. I got paid. The Ukrainian military, there's nothing honest about it. It is a corrupt scheme. And you have these commanders who aren't on the front lines with the troops, but are in the back collecting the pay, and they're deliberately suppressing the number of dead, because if somebody dies, you have to pay benefits and you don't get their salary. So you say they're missing, or you just don't talk about them all. You get that salary, but because you know they're dead, you pocket that salary because you're a corrupt son of a bitch, because that's what every Ukrainian officer is, a corrupt son of a bitch. And we're continuing to support these people. But that's why the missing are off the charts, because you have a corrupt Ukrainian military system that deliberately suppresses the number of dead, so the officers continue to get paid. And they're getting paid with U.S. taxpayer money, by the way. Ukraine doesn't have a viable economy. They're literally not generating taxable income on sufficient level to underwrite what's going on. So it's the American taxpayer that's throwing out $100 bills, and the Ukrainian officers, instead of paying their men, are pocketing this money. I think you're going to find, when it's all said and done, that when somebody talks about 60 to 70% of the funding that went to Ukraine disappeared into corrupt, rabbit holes, that's probably right.
I don't know if you have special lighting tonight or your internet connection is better than usual, but this is the clearest I've ever seen you. I can see the detail. What is that behind you? Is that a chest of drawers, or what is that? This
is one of Marina's masterpieces. We go to antique stores,
right?
And she has a habit of finding things that are underpriced and beautiful. And she found this, and it's a beautiful Chinese chest of drawers. And
you got to watch the recording back later. You can really see the detail in it more than I've ever seen it before.
Yeah, we laughed about it. Have you ever seen that movie, The Birdcage, or The Birdcage with Robin Williams?
Oh no,
Gene Hackman.
No, you know me. I just watch PBS documentaries. But go ahead. What about it?
But they have there just is a scene where because Robin Williams plays a gay guy who's running a drag show thing. Long story, But he's visited by Gene Hackman, who's a very conservative politician, and his wife, and they're eating out of bowls on which are Greek men engaged in what looks like to be leapfrog, but it's not leapfrog. But the point is
horizontal recreation.
Yeah, but it's done because you notice how sometimes they have the art where they show the Greek men running in marathons and doing this and that and the other thing. And so it looks like that, but on closer examination, when you look and you realize, oh, they're not engaged in marathon work; they're engaged in something else.
This might be something that Gore Vidal would have in his living room.
Maybe, as wanted to do. But so we were concerned when we first got this. We were looking at one day, we go, oh my God, have we actually looked at what's going on here? So we had to sit there and stare at each figurine just to make sure that we didn't inadvertently buy a birdcage type wooden carving thing.
Well, if YouTube hasn't given us a strike or whatever they call it, I guess we're all right.
All right.
It looks beautiful. Good find, Marina. Good find. Howard Dillon from Gainesville, Florida asks the following. Please, Mr. Inspector, tell us what you think of the United States and England walking out on the last UN meeting. How would you describe those antics? No worries. You can't be any less diplomatic than these so-called diplomats.
It's amateur hour. That's all it is. The United States and Great Britain are showing that they are nothing but, crybabies, children. And all of Europe's upset. The Russians have tried to assemble. They have the chairmanship of the Arctic Council or something of that nature. All the nations of the Arctic get together and talk about what's going on. And here we go. Wow, you guys are amazing. Look at them, children. And it's not impressive. Your job. I mean, to be honest, as a U.S. taxpayer, I'm furious. Because your job is to represent the United States of America. That means that your job is supposed to be there and listen. You can't play. You can't play if you're not on the field. They're not on the field. They just walked off the field. They're not players. And I'm not paying diplomats to walk away. They suck. They should be fired. Literally. I mean, if I were a member of Congress right now, I would literally call in the Secretary of State and I say, I want the name of every diplomat that walked out of there. And I want to know why they walked out, because I'm not paying them to walk out. I'm paying them to sit in the Security Council and listen to what's going on. I, as a member of Congress, would like a damn transcript of what happened, Mr. Secretary. Why can't you give me a transcript? Because your guy walked out. You're useless. You're fired. I can't fire you because you work for the president. I can stop paying you. Because why should I pay you if you're not doing your job? That's what I wish people in Congress would do. Grow a pair.
What else, Scott? They wouldn't let that go out on their usual UN live stream either. They blocked it. So I had to really fish around to even find that footage. That's from
the United States. We are the free speech people.
Yeah, right.
We are America that believes in free. We don't believe in free speech. We suck. We're hypocrites. If there's free speech, I mean, not Elon Musk, you're not alone. You and the American government are partners in the suppression of free speech. if we believed in free speech, if we had confidence in what we stand for, we'd be present, we'd make our argument. People who walk away are people who aren't confident in their argument. They're going into, gamesmanship instead of substance. And again, if I wanted to hire actors, then I could go down to any off-Broadway show and find a bunch of actors who are desperate for a job, and I'll give them the job. I say, today we're going to play the role of an American diplomat in the Biden administration. You will sit there until something substantive happens, and you'll stand up and you'll walk away. And that's it. Here, $50. Boom, that's it. So, no, we suck.
Odious.
We really do. I'm very unhappy with the status of America today. We don't stand for anything substantive.
How dare you?
Walter from West Virginia. Assume Russia defeats Ukraine decisively. Putin will have the opportunity to prove he has no interest in Western expansion. Do you think he will seize that opportunity and try to persuade Europe that it has nothing to fear from Russia, which could lead to a new European security structure without NATO? How would Europe respond?
Walter, please put together a resume and submit it to the State Department. You should be a diplomat, because that's just the right way to think. That's literally the right way to think. How do we resolve this issue? Recognizing that at some point in time, this war is going to end. And when that war ends, do we want to have a continuation of the cycle of violence and conflict that led to the defeat that's been humiliating for us and devastating for Ukraine? Or do we want to learn from our mistakes and realize that diplomacy provides the best, the best venue for, doing things that don't result in dead people? I mean, gosh, it sort of works. Ask the Chinese. They slipped into the Middle East while we were trying to promote war, and they got the Saudis and the Iranians to make good. And I'm not talking superficial make good. I'm talking about substantive stuff. While Macron and Ursula were in China making fools out of themselves, the Chinese were playing host to the Saudis and the Iranians, who have begun substantive talks about resolving. Did you just lose more wine, Jeff? The cup just malfunctioned again. I don't know. That's what happened last time. But
there's something deeply wrong with me.
The cup, you poured more wine in and you just lost it again.
There's something deeply wrong with me. Even though I was consciously aware of it, I poured too much in.
Ryan, boom, a double lawsuit.
I think I may need to. I don't know if it's AA I need or just I have a memory problem or something.
Jeff,
what?
Diet Coke, man. You can't go wrong.
I'm going to stick with this cup though, even though it's.
I know, but you got to learn how to use the cup.
I know. I thought I had it nailed.
All right, but my point is, I think Walt's question was perfect, because that's and you know what? Well, that shows some insight into Russia, because that's what Russia's been trying to do from day one, to show NATO that they're not a threat. Life is a cause and effect relationship, and cause and effect is NATO expanding, aggressively towards Russia, NATO using Russia as a foil to justify its continued existence, and Russia doing its best to manage escalation. It wasn't until Russia's back was up against the wall that they had no choice but to intervene. And even then, when they intervened, they did it through a special military operation that sought the quickest possible exit from the conflict, that is, a negotiated settlements, which they almost got in April 1st of last year. But then Boris Johnson flew in at the orders of Biden and nixed it. Russia doesn't want to move further west. Russia doesn't want a war with NATO. Russia doesn't want a war with anybody. Russia would like to live, peacefully in coexistence with people. So, Walt, you've got my vote, man. I mean,
all right. Walt is now a diplomat, and I apologize to the audience and to you, Scott, for that interruption. That's too much.
No, we enjoyed it. We were all thinking the exact same thing. Jeff put in too much wine.
All right. Mike from the United States. I've heard of that country. The Israelis. Are they right or wrong in this whole mess in the Middle East? It seems the whole Arab world was against them from the jump, and they nobly defended themselves. What's the complete reality? The complete reality. It's good that this is the loquacious version, because he wants the complete reality. I'll just sit back and enjoy this wine while you give the complete reality.
Well, I can't give the complete reality. Look, I this is one of those impossible situations.
Thank you.
You know, the Israelis, I think, I forget who it was, Moshe Dayan maybe, basically said if he was a Palestinian, he'd hate Israel too, because the bottom line is the birth of Israel meant the disenfranchisement of the Palestinian people. I don't want to hear anybody who says there was no Palestine. There is a Palestine. There was a Palestine, and the Palestinian people got ripped off. And every Israeli at the birth of Israel knows this because they know what they did. They know what happened. They know that after 1948, they went in and forcefully evicted people. They massacred villages. They literally carried out, ethnic cleansing in order to create a Jewish homeland. That's the reality. Yes, were the Arabs surrounding Israel against the creation of the state of Israel? Absolutely. Yes. Were some of them motivated by the most base anti-Semitism possible? Yes. As I said, it's ugly on both sides, but the idea of the noble defense of Israel, this was literally about the European Jews carving out a homeland in the Middle East. And in order to do that, it's just like, how does the United States, get the state of Kentucky? Hey, there's the state of Kentucky. Yeah, but weren't the Shawnee there first? Who? Those American, the red man. Yeah, we killed them all. So you didn't just get the state of Kentucky. You killed a lot of Native Americans to acquire the state of Kentucky. Yeah, and Israel acquired the state of Israel by forcefully evicting the Palestinian population that lived there, or as they're doing now, subjecting the current Palestinians to an apartheid-like regime. It's a complicated situation because now what do? You have a nation of 5 to 6 million Israelis, many of whom were born there, who consider Israel their home. Do we forcefully evict them? Does do two wrongs make a right? We're in a very difficult situation. One of the problems is Israel, this whole concept of Zionism, the creation of an Israeli homeland is the most undemocratic thing possible, because the implication is only a Jew has rights. Christians don't have rights. Muslims don't have rights. And yet the Holy Land is home not just to the Jewish faith, but the Christian faith and the Muslim faith. It's a big deal, but I can't give you the whole story because it's very, very complicated. I got in trouble early on when not here, but when I would talk about this issue. But just so people know that from 1994 to 1998, I made multiple trips to Israel, working with the Israeli government at the highest level. I've been all over Israel, and I'm very familiar with the reality of Israeli politics. I was briefed by a senior Israeli intelligence official about the number one threats to Israel in 1997, 1998. And at the top of the list was right-wing Jewish terrorism. If you remember Yitzhak Rabin, Israeli prime minister, was assassinated by right-wing Israeli terrorists. Some people believe that the terrorist was motivated by the words of Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister of Israel. I was there when Yitzhak Rabin was shot. I was in Israel. I remember the night that it happened. I remember how it impacted the Israeli people. I remember the shock of all that. I have gone to, I can't remember the name of the city. It's a beautiful city. Nazareth. I've gone to Nazareth, which, of course, Jesus was born in Nazareth. And then there's a very important church in Nazareth where you can go and you can buy some really cool Christian icons and stuff. And so, but I've gone there when the Arabs have risen up. I actually wandered into sort of the beginning of the second Intifada, and didn't realize what was happening until I realized what was happening. So I've seen it up close and personal, and I just what I don't know how many times I can say it. This is an extremely complicated situation, and literally nothing I'm going to say here tonight is going to make anybody happy, except that I'm just acknowledging that it's not a black and white situation. This is one of those situations that is murkier than hell, and all sides bear responsibility, except for one basic fact. There was a Palestine. It was populated by the Palestinian people. And because of Zionism, European Jews came and carved out a homeland from lands that formerly belonged to Palestinians. And you can't get away from that reality. The founding fathers of Israel acknowledged that straight up. That's what happened.
Remember in the old days when you would say things like what you just said, and some people would take that as a signal that you're on board with their anti-Semitic views, and in the audience Q&As, remember they would.
Oh yeah.
You guys want to see him throw a fit? I thought you
call me anti-Semitic, and I'm.
Well, they weren't really calling you anti-Semitic, but they were thinking that you were, one of them. That you were.
That I was on board
kindred
with
spirit.
That I was a Jew hater.
Yeah,
I'm not a Jew hater. I mean, I love the Israelis are so.
That's good.
That's
because
why
you're never
get
back on Twitter if you're anti-Semitic.
The Israelis that I met are they're wonderful human beings. I mean, God, I fell in love with Israel. I'll just be straight up honest. I fell in love with Israel when I went there and visited. The interesting thing is I was there, like I said, from 1994 to 1998. And every time I went, every visit I went to Israel, there was a terrorist event that happened within blocks of where I was. Bus stations blowing up, restaurants blowing up. And I would sit there and watch the Israelis mourn and then get up and move on. But I also, the thing that struck me was how every Israeli I talked to took the terrorist act not as a sign that Israel needs to further crack down on Palestinians, but as a sign that Israel needs to solve this Palestinian problem peacefully. It actually empowered the anti-war movement even more. And I was encouraged by that. And then Yitzhak Rabin got killed, and Shimon Peres and Netanyahu did their little swap off. Netanyahu began his string of power, and Israel's changed. The last time I was in Israel was 2009. And it was a completely different country, totally paranoid country. It had been taken over politically, not taken over, but one of the things that was happening when I was there was that there was this massive migration of Ukrainian and Russian Jews to Israel in the post Cold War period, and the longtime Israelis, who grandparents were there and all that stuff, said this is going to change everything because we've been working so hard to try and come up with an accommodation with the Arabs, with the Palestinians, based upon mutual respect and all that. It's very hard to find the right formula, but we're moving in that direction. And suddenly, in a nation of 4 million, you're going to get close to 1 million immigrants. So 20% of the population is now going to increase, and that's going to radically transform the political balance of power inside Israel, because many of the Russian Jews coming in would join the right-wing parties, which are vehemently anti-Arab, and it just changed everything inside Israel. And you could see that in 2009. Now they had a damn wall going up, and that sickened me. That wall was literally, the kind of thing that you'd expect out of Nazi Germany, but it's now on Israeli soil, separating Israelis from the Palestinians, and just the paranoia, the fear. When we got into taxis, this just the underlying fear that existed there. Israel was a changed nation, and not for the better.
VW from Illinois, can you tell us what's going on in Serbia? Are they totally controlled by the West now?
Well, the president seems to be. I think Vukic. Thank you, Marine Forever. Arabs are Semites. That's the sort of one of the most amazing things. I'll get back to the Serbian thing, but you're anti-Semite if you say I'm pro-Palestinian. You're anti-Semite. They're Semites too. I mean, you might want to look up the word, what a Semite is. But so yeah, good point.
Is there another term for hating the Jews, though?
Jew hater. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's a little clunky, I think.
Well, yeah, but it's straight up.
Yeah.
You know where they stand if they say that.
Right, right.
But no, Serbia's in a tough position because they have they're pro-Russian. There's no doubt about that. They're pro-Russian, but they're physically separated from Russia at a time when all of Europe has turned against Russia, at least politically speaking. And the Serbian future, they can either be strangled to death by the European Union, or they can join the European Union. So the European Union is basically blackmailing Serbia into taking an anti-Russian posture. It's difficult for the Serbians to do, but the Serbian president apparently lost his balls somewhere, and he's a eunuch, but that's an insult to eunuchs, we already determined. But eunuch. Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but we'll find out. We'll find out, what the Serbian people think. Is there going to be political consequences for this, or is all of Serbia understand the unfortunate reality that unless Europe changes its posture, Serbia is in the middle of Europe, and Europe's going to strangle Serbia economically, and a president's supposed to be looking out for the welfare of his people. And it appears that he has made a decision that towing the line when it comes to Europe's stance on sanctioning Russia is the only way forward for him. So we'll see.
I'm continuing to get the emails about, hey, where's the book? Where's the book? Can we get a progress report? Did you get the books from that were
books
shipped?
Arrived today,
okay,
and they will go out tomorrow.
All right, great. So if you want to order your books,
no, I could stop this show right now, Jeff, and just turn it over to you, and I'll go do the books. And
well, I'm too busy.
That impatient.
I'm too busy cleaning up wine, so otherwise,
okay. You get a dog.
Yeah. So there you go. Ask the Inspector T-shirts. I have one here. I should have worn it. Maybe I don't know if I can change in midstream, but next episode perhaps. Yuri from Novosibirsk, I believe it's pronounced. Why should anyone build bridges with the West? It has only ever attacked humanity. Putin tried it in Minsk, and you just stabbed him in the back. You, meaning our fellow Americans, I guess. You say you should be allowed into Russia to speak, but the West has never allowed Russians to speak.
Well, I'm not going to defend what's going on here in the West towards Russians. I think we've talked. I've had conversations with the Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, and we've discussed this. I've written an article in Substack about this. So Yuri, hopefully you've read that article and know where I'm coming from. With all due respect, Yuri, I don't say that I should be allowed into Russia to speak. I've been invited by Russians to come to Russia to speak. Now, I understand you have a point of view, and I respect your point of view, but you should respect the point of view of others in Russia who say, maybe I should come to speak. Others in Russia who might be interested in building these bridges. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, look,
he expects you to self-censor?
Pardon?
He expects you to self-censor. That's a weird concept, self-censorship.
Yeah, I'll just shut up. I mean, believe me, a lot of people would be very happy. A whole bunch of NAFO trolls would be like, yay. But Yuri, I don't know where you're coming from, man.
Yeah, Yuri, what's up, man? Come on, man.
I'm trying to be polite. See how I'm trying to be polite.
Come on, man.
Because it's sort of like he wants to pick a fight.
Maybe.
Yuri, I'll be in Novosibirsk.
There we go.
So if you want to have this conversation in person, we can do it. I'm not being belligerent here. I'm not saying to fight, but I mean, what is your beef? Do you really want a war with the United States? Do you really want a war with the United States? Because right near Novosibirsk, not right near your beautiful city that I've been to, by the way. I landed there back in 1990, April of 1990. We're coming up on wow, important. What is that? 33 years or something of that nature. Right near there is it used to be an SS-25 missile base. There's some other military facilities there. that we target with nuclear weapons. And I can guarantee you that if we go to war, those nuclear weapons will hit those places. I can guarantee that your beautiful city of Novosibirsk will be destroyed. So I would say that you might want to think about building bridges rather than burning bridges, Yuri. Because if you burn the bridge and you're not talking to us, we're going to blow the living shit out of you. Now, yes, you'll send missiles up and blow me up too. And wow, where are we at that point in time? Dumber than dirt. So I would imagine that you, like me, want to live. I would imagine that you, like me, have a family, and we want to encourage our daughters, our sons, the granddaughters and grandsons that we hopefully will have at some point in time, live in a world free of nuclear devastation. But that's only going to happen with a bridge, and that bridge is only going to get built if we talk. So rather than burn the bridge and ignore us, because we ain't going away, we're here. And if you ignore us and you don't give us an opportunity to build that bridge and come over and talk to you and bring you over here and talk to us and break through the wall of hatred and fear and ignorance that creates Russophobia, or in your case, apparently you suffer from what's the Americophobia? You hate us, apparently. You don't like us. Now, I know you think you have a reason to hate us. I know you can point to certain fact sets and say, this proves that you're unworthy and yeah, I'm not debating that, Yuri. I know we've done wrong. I agree with you on that one. But I think we need to understand that we have to get past this if we're going to survive. Because if we don't get past this, what we get is what we get right now. Two nuclear armed powers that aren't talking to one another. Meanwhile, the Russians have modified their strategic nuclear deterrent, and America's hell-bent on modifying its. Now, when we start building and deploying weapons without a treaty framework to suppress them and create confidence between the two with an exchange of inspectors, we get a nuclear arms race. And with the new kind of weapons that we have, a nuclear arms race creates increased lethality and potential for mistakes, misjudgments, errors to accidentally trigger a nuclear conflict, and you're dead, I'm dead, we're all dead. You know how we solve that, Yuri? Build a goddamn bridge, walk over it, and shake my hand. So I'm coming to Novosibirsk, and I'd like to meet you, Yuri. I'd like to meet you and talk to you, and when we're done, I'll put my hand out, and you can decide at that point in time if you want to shake it or not.
All right. You might squeeze it a little bit harder than necessary.
No, I'm not a violent person.
Passive aggressive sometimes, Brian Wellbrock from Melbourne, Florida, of the Melbourne Wellbrocks. You know that family. They're almost as illustrious as the Kennedys. Hey, RFK declared his candidacy.
Yes, he did. And do you know he declared his candidacy? You know who was the last interview he did before he declared his candidacy?
Let me take a guess. Would it rhyme with Twitter?
Why did you do that, Jeff? Why did you ruin the moment?
I could have said it rhymed with quitter, but that would have been worse. He interviewed you, Critter.
He and I had a very nice conversation, and I've put it on my Telegram channel. And then that means that we could also put it on our Substack, and it could become part of our Substack notes.
That's right. That would be a great post on notes. I'm not sure that that's actually happening yet. I think it's about to happen. But anyway, so that after he did an interview with you, it was shortly after that he announced his candidacy, huh?
That's what I like to believe. That appears to be the chronology. Now, I'm not in control.
Well, we're not saying cause and effect. We're just saying that chronology is a fact.
All I'm saying is that I had a very nice conversation with Robert Kennedy Jr.
Right.
And shortly after that conversation ended, I learned that he made an announcement to run for president.
All right. So before that conversation, he was on a window ledge thinking about ending it all. And then after the conversation, he decided to run for president. All right. There's a start. I see the contrast.
But what I would encourage everybody to do, because I thought that the conversation was very, very insightful into the man. And I was deeply impressed by his willingness to listen.
Right.
And when he talked about things that that motivated him to give you insight into the foundation of his thinking, he spoke often of his uncle, JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, former president of the United States.
Yes, I've heard of him.
And he spoke about the way his uncle was deliberate, was thoughtful, and I think any man who takes guidance from JFK, especially when we compare and contrast with a candidate who takes Joe Biden, who takes guidance from chocolate ice cream, and Donald Trump, who takes guidance from Stormy Daniels. I'll take
Guidance.
the guy who, yeah.
That's a unique, novel concept of guidance. And I ask this just in terms of assessing electability. I'm not mocking him at all. I heard that he had a medical procedure and his voice has improved. Is that so? Was that detectable to you?
I understood Bobby Kennedy every time he spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to pretend that there isn't an issue there? No, but I had no problem following him. I had no problem, discerning emotion, meaning that when he spoke with emotion, you could tell he was speaking with emotion. I had no
Good.
problem discerning emphasis and all that. The bottom line is, when I listened to him speak, I had the same ability to not only discern the words, but the emotion behind the words. So Bobby Kennedy communicated with me extremely effective. And I would imagine that any American that took the time to listen to him would find that he communicates extremely effective.
All right. Well, I will take the time. I'll log into your Telegram channel if I haven't been banned, because I know that a lot of people have been banned.
Only because you spill wine, Jeff. We are a
Oh, that's
wine-friendly community, and next thing I know, you're assassinating bottles of wine. Did you spill? Don't tell me that's Georgian wine in that cup that you just poured on.
No. This is just run-of-the-mill California wine.
Okay, if it's just California wine, then you can go ahead and trigger the.
And in case they're watching, I thanked them last week, but in case they're watching again, thank you again to Jeff and Marina for the Georgian wine. Great. All right, Brian Welbrock's question. Do you have any thoughts on the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Azerbaijan is a top ally of Israel, and the U.S. and U.K. have been selling weapons to the country for some time. Iran has stated they will not allow Azerbaijan to invade and take southern Armenia so they can link up with Nakhchivan and Turkey.
Okay, just so everybody knows, Nakhchivan is a Azerbaijani enclave that is located to the west of the Azerbaijan-Armenian conglomerate.
Who didn't know that?
You had Nakhchivan, you have Turkey and Iran down here. Then you have the Armenian land bridge that goes between Nakhchivan and this mass up here called Nagorno-Karabakh, which is an Armenian enclave surrounded by Azerbaijan. Nagorno-Karabakh back in 1992, from 1998 to 1992, was the scene of what they call the First Nagorno-Karabakh War, which was won by the Armenians, who drove the Azerbaijanis out of that land bridge between Nakhchivan and Nagorno-Karabakh, basically bringing Nagorno-Karabakh into the Armenian landmass and causing Azerbaijan to lose. Some people, I think it was up to 30% of their territory. And in 2020, Azerbaijan, 2022, no, gosh, when was it? I think it was 2022, maybe. 2021. Anyways, Azerbaijan basically started a war that recaptured much of this territory. And there's a ceasefire right now. And we have a situation now, I think it was 2021, because now in 2022, Russia has 2,000 peacekeepers deployed there, but Russia is, of course, distracted with Ukraine. The European Union has moved in, and much to the irritation of Russia, have deployed 100 police officers as observers on Armenian soil, sort of trying to usurp Russia's role. Turkey backs Azerbaijan. Russia supposedly backed Armenia, but the Armenian president snubbed Putin. I mean, you don't have the Russian president land at your airport and have nobody on the tarmac to greet him. If you do that, don't be surprised when Russia says, we're not going to be there for you when you need us. And when Armenia was screaming during the Azerbaijani attacks, we need help, Russia's going, you brought it on yourselves, guys. deal with it, and they did. They lost a whole bunch of territory. So now we have a situation where you have this land bridge coming out of Russia that basically comes down through Georgia and then down through Armenia and connects with Iran. And this land bridge is a very important connectivity feature between Iran and the Persian Gulf warm water ports and in Russia. But now that Azerbaijan has recaptured some of this land, Azerbaijan is taxing vehicles that cross this highly that disruptive, and they've threatened other things to disrupt this. And so Iran has said we aren't happy about this. So Iran has positioned troops up there. They've held exercise. Now we complicate things even further. If everything I just said wasn't complicated enough, Azerbaijan, because of its oil, it says gas, has become a player in European geopolitics. Azerbaijani gas is being sought after by Europe to replace Russian gas. And even prior to that, just the amount of money that's in there, there's a big Western presence. And Israel has jumped in on that. Israel has a heavy presence in Azerbaijan, and Israel has used this presence to infiltrate Iran. Why? Up to 30% of the Iranian population up in the north is actually Azeri Turk. And so there's a lot of connectivity there. So Israel comes in, takes advantage of specific communities that it can exploit inside Azerbaijan to infiltrate and get into Iran. And then they move on and they can do things like espionage. They can do things like plant spy rocks near a nuclear facility that gathers signals and movements. They can do things like assassinate nuclear scientists. They can do things like open up front companies that allow technology to be infiltrated into centrifuge production machines and then blow them up. Israel's basically using Azerbaijan as a vehicle to carry out this this covert war against Iran, and Iran's fed up with it. And so Iran has struck back. You have a situation, I think, in January or maybe late last year, where Iranians stormed the Azerbaijani embassy. It created a stink, and now you have a situation where 4 Azeri Turks from Azerbaijan attempted to assassinate a member of parliament in Azerbaijan who's very anti-Iranian, and the Azeris are blaming the Iranians for this, and so there's a lot of tension right now. There's a potential for an outbreak of violence. Azerbaijan needs to be careful because it's when you allow your soil to be used by the Israelis as a platform to go and launch attacks against things that are critical to the Iranian national security, there will be blowback. And right now, Azerbaijan's making a lot of assumptions that people are going to be there to support them. They feel very confident about what just happened in terms of their victory over the Armenians. But I think, they're going to find when push comes to shove that if Turkey has to make a decision between Azerbaijan and Russian relations, realizing that the energy hub that Russia is getting ready to help Turkey build will position Turkey to be a regional superpower in competition with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan can find itself very much alone very quickly. And it's just a dangerous situation altogether.
Fred W. of the Kentucky W's. You said if they perp walk Trump, Trump has your vote. Do you still feel that way?
Well, they didn't really perp walk him, did they? I mean, perp walk is when you handcuff them and you sort of have the guys. Trump was treated better than any other defendant I've seen treated.
I have a video clip. Let's show folks what you're talking about.
He was booked, the former president, and here he is.
President Trump, will you come speak to us, President Trump?
There it is, about 5 seconds, but
That was it. And they had still photos of him in the courtroom too. So it
Yeah, look,
wasn't it wasn't a perp walk in the sense of handcuffed and dragged in front of the media.
right.
They,
Look, I think this prosecution is a joke, a tragic joke. I'm Jeff knows that my ability to absorb legality or legal arguments is oftentimes highly influenced by prejudices, and but I'll just admit straight up front that I am prejudiced against Bragg, and yeah, no way the NYPD would do a perp walk Trump. That would cause riots in the city, and they just plus half of them are Trump supporters. So
well, there's the Secret Service issue, though. I mean, it's not.
Oh, you don't understand. The Secret Service will shoot you dead. You lay a hand on the president. Okay, you don't say. Anyways, I don't want to get into it.
Why is that? Actually, I have a question about the Secret Service, but go ahead with what you were going to say before I ask it.
I just think this whole thing's a travesty, and I think it's going to backfire. I think that Trump is not going to be found guilty in New York. I think this. I hope that the judge does the right thing and just dismisses these charges. But if it's brought to trial, I can't imagine a jury. There's so many problems with this. Once you get it to trial and you start bringing in these witnesses, there's an old saying that you can indict a ham sandwich in front of a grand jury, because a grand jury is 100% controlled by the prosecution. The defense gets nothing there. So it doesn't surprise me that they got a grand jury.
No, they always do. But Jonathan Turley wrote a column, and he was saying, well, does the grand jury even know in this case what they were indicting him for? Because the indictment doesn't reveal what makes it a felony. The statute of limitations expired, and they charged him with a felony, but it's only a felony if it's to conceal another crime. And Fat Alvin didn't even reveal what the other crime is.
That's what I'm saying.
What are they indicting him for?
They don't know. I mean, look, I've sat on grand juries, and I'm not allowed to talk about it because they're secret. But I will tell you this: the prosecutions are pieces of shit, because what they do is they time everything. They drag this process out forever. They bring in these witnesses, and you're not supposed to ask questions. I mean, you're supposed to, but they don't want you to ask questions. And they really get on your case when you start asking questions. And they really hated it when I would start asking questions.
When you say you mean you as as a member of the grand jury?
Correct. Me as a member of the grand jury.
Okay. And what kind of question? Ask questions to whom? What sort of questions?
Cops, dirty cops, filthy, dirty cops, corrupt cops who were lying to the grand jury, and I would ask questions that would expose their lives.
But nobody's ever seen a grand jury, so I don't even know what the setup is. Is it informal, or is there a very structured way that you?
I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, I can tell you how it worked here. You're in a room. It's like a conference room, and you have a whole bunch of seats, and then there's a separation, and they have a person come. The prosecutor comes in, and it's all chummy. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. They give you a briefing. Then they bring in a witness. They swear the witness, and then the witness gives his testimony, and then we're allowed to ask questions, but they really discourage it, and they get really angry, and then they do things like, well, we're going to suspend the proceedings at this time, and then on the way out, But
when you ask the questions, is it structured like here now? This juror asks a question, and that one, or is it more of a free form thing like you'd see on a TV show?
No. We don't get to cross examine you. You have to write your question down, and then you hand the question to the foreperson, and then the foreperson hands it to the prosecution. And the prosecution comes up. We have a question from a juror. Da 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 da. And then they'll do that. But
And how long were you on the grand jury for?
Well, this thing went on for 2 weeks, and now we're heading towards a 3-day weekend, a holiday weekend, and so I'm asking questions that are just tearing the case apart, literally tearing their case apart, and they are freaking pissed. So they basically come up and get the foreman to agree to do a vote, to rush the vote. And the idea is that if you could just get this vote done, we will release you for the 3-day weekend. And all the grand jurors who didn't want to be there, I'm talking, this isn't 12 angry men. These aren't a whole bunch of well-meaning citizens. 80% of them didn't want to be there, just want to get the hell out of there. They don't care about anything like that. So anyways, I just saw how it happened. I told people right up front that, what's going to happen here is that when you finish voting, you guys are going to go home for a 3-day weekend. These are sealed indictments. And at some point in time, some people are going to be walking on the street and cops are going to show up, because these are Albany cops, which are pieces of shit. And they're going to come up and they're going to slam them to the ground and they're going to handcuff them and throw them in frickin' jail because a sealed indictment was unsealed. And now they're going to be put on trial. And the people they're going to be put down, some of them are guilty, at least appear to be guilty, but some of them aren't. They're being set up by the cops, and they're being set up by the cops. And now they want to rush a vote rather than us sitting here. Again, they won't allow a 12 angry man scenario to occur. So that's what happened. I just have no use for the U.S. judicial system anymore. It's literally.
Well, that leads me to the question I was going to ask, and one of the commenters that Ann just put up had the same question. It's about the Secret Service. Do we trust the Secret Service? But before you answer, let me just preface it by saying, we all know that there's so much dishonesty and corruption in this world and at every level. And yet, I don't know if it's justified or not, but for whatever reason, the Secret Service has a good reputation. And the fact the word secret is in their name makes it seem all the more unlikely. Yet, it does seem to be, the rare agency that's not poisoned by corruption for some reason. What do you know about the Secret Service? Is it really, a kosher operation like it seems? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, we know that Secret Service agents have done stupid things. We know they went to Colombia, an advance party. They bought prostitutes. They got drugs. They're human beings. They're cops. That tells it all right there. They're arrogant pricks who think they are the law unto themselves. Like every cop. There's not a cop. There's very few cops out there that actually believe in serving the people. Cops put on a uniform, put on a badge, and they literally wake up every morning wanting to beat the living shit out of people, and they pray for an opportunity to shoot somebody because they got a gun and they got to use it. That's most cops. I've watched them in action. I've driven ambulances watching a cop beat the shit out of a drunk in the back of the seat. These aren't good people. Being a police officer is a corrupting influence, and I'll challenge any cop out there straight up. You may not be that guy, but you know the guys I'm talking about, and you've been silent as those guys do things, and you're a law enforcement officer. Any cop who protects a fellow cop who's done something wrong is a bad cop. Straight up. And every cop out there has been silent at one point or another about crimes committed by fellow police officers. That makes all cops complicit in that.
Well, what about the big enchilada, Scott, protecting the president? We just had a comment, somebody saying they were involved in the assassination of JFK.
No one knows that they were involved in the assassination of JFK. I mean, if you know that, cite the document, cite the source. We don't know. How do you know that? How do you know they conspired and facilitated and assassinated JFK? How do you know that?
Yeah, what I'm saying is it doesn't seem that way at all. No. It seems like they're really risking their own lives, and Trump is one of the most controversial figures ever. You'd think, if anybody's vulnerable.
He's not controversial for the Secret Service. The guy who's controversial for the Secret Service, Slick Willie. Slick Willie, who's going around and the Secret Service is sworn to protect the privacy of the president. So when Slick Willie's going off to, his little hotel rendezvous, the Secret Service job is to protect him. They're not there to question his morality, question his judgment. They're there to protect the president of the United States. And they do that job very well. Now, you got to ask your motives about that. I mean, I think personally that Secret Service guys join to protect the president because they get to do really cool shit. Because they get to go to Quantico, Virginia and practice counter ambush drills where they have fancy shit I can't talk about, but they have stuff to do stuff that it's really cool, and you get some special training, and they pray for an opportunity to do this. They're prepared for it. They're leaning forward. They join the Secret Service because it's an adrenaline rush. I don't think they
Yeah,
joined.
I remember there was a Trump rally, and one of the photographers, I think for Time or one of the major media organizations, was a little bit too aggressive, and the Secret Service agent kind of slammed him down to the ground. And that is about the most controversial thing I can recall ever happening with the Secret Service. They do seem like they're genuinely committed to protecting the president.
Sure, I'm not doubting that, but they are invested with a lot of power
Yeah.
in that protection, and they enjoy the living dog crap out of it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, Secret Service are cops. They have a job. Their job is to protect the president, but they're given a lot of power and authority to do that, and I think they just enjoy flexing their muscles. But like any cop, anytime a cop is given a chance to flex their muscle and be a cop, that makes their day. That's why they joined the force. They didn't join the force to. I mean, again, I have to be careful because Bethlehem cops here are actually pretty good guys. I just read the. I went on the page and read, and because Bethlehem's a pretty quiet town, so these are guys who actually pull cats out of trees and help old ladies cross the street and resuscitate people who have heart attacks and run into burning buildings and do things. So I'll be careful. Sometimes I let my emotions.
So we're talking about the Secret Service. So if somebody wanted to assassinate Trump, you don't think they would get to through the Secret Service? That wouldn't be a way to orchestrate an assassination plot.
No, not at all.
Okay. And I just say Trump as an example. Could be others too. Oh, we already did that one. Let's go on to the next question from Johan from Sweden. Your book is a fantastic idea to counteract Russophobia, since this disease is very prevalent throughout Europe as well. How can we in Europe connect to and support your effort regarding this?
Buy the book and encourage other people to buy the book. That supports me financially. I wrote the book to get information out there, but it's also, that book took me 3 years to write. Nobody paid me. I didn't get an advance to write the book. So you write the book with the potential that it's going to go out there and sell copies. If you think there's enough people in Sweden who would like to talk about this, get the book published in the Swedish language. Have me come over and do a tour in Sweden, and have conversations with the Swedish people about the issue of Russophobia. Because that's the key. Again, go back to Yuri in Novosibirsk. Yuri, we got a lot of people in the United States that don't like you. You know that, but they don't like you not because they met you. They don't know you from Boo. They just don't like you because you're Russian. Straight up, don't like you because you're Russian. All I have to do is say Yuri's from Russia, and they go, we don't like him. Is that fair, Yuri? I don't think it's fair. So how do I break through that, Yuri? Help me out here. Help me out. How do I break through this Russophobia that the gentleman from Sweden is talking about? Because it's real. It's real. It's here. It's everywhere. You can't even whisper the word Russia, and they go, oh, you're bad. Automatically, bam, bad. And if we don't defeat it, understand that Russophobia as a disease will infect everything about America, and that all of our policies are infected by it. And some of those policies involve, for instance, nuclear posture. Do you want to know why the United States has a nuclear posture that speaks of the potential of preemptive nuclear strike? Because we don't like Russians. Why don't we like Russians? It's not because we know anything about Russia. We don't like Russians because we need not to like you as a way of empowering ourselves to have this posture to begin with. Because we have a bunch of idiots in the military-industrial complex who use the fear generated by the ignorance of the American people to get taxpayer money to build a nuclear enterprise that empowers them politically, you see, because as we build these weapons, we have different factories, different think tanks, different institutions around the country that are involved in this. And Congress pours money into them, and then they pour money back into the congressional reelection funds of these same Congress people. It becomes this vicious circle. And the only way the circle is broken, Yuri, is if we can overcome Russophobia and educate the American people into realizing this is suicidal. So now, Yuri, I just want to say, how are we going to fix this, Yuri? What I would like to do, Yuri, is go across a bridge, the one you want to burn. I want to go across the bridge into Russia, and I want to interact with people, including you, Yuri. I would like to interact with you, and I want to capture this. That's so I'm not just going there to speak into the wind, Yuri. I'm going to go there to speak with you and others and try and capture it and then bring that back over the bridge. So don't burn it while I'm over there, Yuri. I need to get back over the bridge, and I need to come back to the United States, and I need to basically start communicating with the American people, educating them about you, Yuri. You, the reality of you, not the theory of you, who you really are. Because you're not doing a very good goddamn job of communicating to the Americans, Yuri. You want to burn the damn bridge. I want to go over the bridge, talk to you, shake your hand, get to know you, and then bring that message back to the United States and somehow vaccinate. Oh God, I can't use that word. Purge the disease of Russophobia from
like Van Cliburn did in the 1950s, and
right.
you've been talking about. You've been talking, and Samantha Smith also. You've been talking about how Van Cliburn is an inspiration for you. So let's dedicate this next video clip that I have to Yuri. This is a concert from 1958, Van Cliburn with the Moscow Philharmonic Orchestra. I just want to show you, if you want to hear the music, you can do that on your own time, folks. The music is great. But let me just show you how this concert ended. And I think this is what Scott... It's grainy because it's old. It's from the 50s. But you can get the sense of what happened here. This is how the concert ended. And I'm told that this standing ovation he got lasted 8 minutes. First thing he does is he embraces the Russian conductor. And then you'll see that the audience members give him flowers, so they're showering him with warmth. And then the first thing he does when he's presenting the flowers is he gives the flowers to the Russian conductor. That's the handshake right there that Scott has in mind. Watch this. Oh, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. Beautiful. Anyway, the orchestra's applauding him too. Just such warmth, such a heartwarming scene. That went on for 8 minutes.
The reason why I bring up Van Cliburn isn't because to be honest, I mean, I knew he was. I mean, anybody who's lived in America long enough knows that in the 80s and 90s, if you're watching afternoon TV, how they bring on those infomercials or whatever, and and all of a sudden it's the music of Van Cliburn. Van Cliburn plays the Carpenters. Dun, 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 dun. Van Cliburn pays this because Van Cliburn, like all of us, has to earn a living at some point, and so he is a piano player who has a good name, and he would be selling his product on TV. So I when I heard Van Cliburn, I'm like, I know who he is. He's that dude that plays piano on those infomercials. That's all I knew about. It took Anatoly Antonov to educate me about Van Cliburn because he wrote an article that talked about Russophobia in the United States, the problem of Russophobia. And I read that article, and I was ashamed, to be honest, because here I am, a guy who's a Russian studies major, a Russian history major, and I make this big thing out of how I appreciate the Russians, and I do all this stuff, and then I'm reading this article written by Anatoly Antonov, and I'm just like, man, am I a freaking fraud or what? Because he's sitting there, putting things out there, and I knew some of this stuff. I mean, I'm not totally stupid, but I'm just sitting there going, I am so ignorant. I am literally ignorant about half this stuff. I'm superficial on a lot of this stuff, and it shamed me. And so I started researching it. And the more I learned about Van Cliburn, I'm just like, son of a bitch, that's what I need to do. I need to discover my own inner Van Cliburn. I need to find a way to, get over there and meet people and try and break through these walls. And he can't do it alone. I mean, Van Cliburn had this wonderful stage to do this on, the Tchaikovsky the music festival, and and it was just a unique period of time where he could come over, do it. There was this window of opportunity where the Soviet Union, United States were beginning to talk to each other a little bit after Sputnik, before Gary Powers got shot down. And it was just the perfect moment for Van Cliburn to do it. And it was awesome. Awesome. And so when, when I was first invited to go to Russia by the host who's bringing me over there, he just said, Scott, we love you and we want you to come to Russia and we want you to show you Russia. And I was touched. I mean, because it's quite an offer. But I said, I can't do it because we live in a day and age where that would just be misconstrued. It wouldn't be seen as the Russians being nice. It would be seen as me being bought by the Russians, that the Russians now have brought me in, owned me, control me, have leverage over me, etc. Nobody would trust anything that came from that trip. And so I responded by saying, I thank you very much. I really appreciate that, but I can't do it because my government, my nation, this people who are infected with Russophobia would never once understand that it could actually be, that you could actually have a legitimate kindness of your heart thing saying, I want to bring an American over and show an American Russia. I said, however, I did write this book, and the book is relevant. It's relevant about everything that's going on today. There it is, Disarmament at the Time of Perestroika. I have to tell you that if I were going to market this book in Russia, I picked the wrong damn words because the Russians are very paranoid about disarmament. They feel that the United States has used disarmament to achieve unilateral advantage over the Americans over. And perestroika is just not a term that people like to hear. So horrible title for the book for Russia. For Americans, I think it's a great title.
Luckily it rolls right off the tongue here in America.
Kiss my you-know-what, Jeff. Look, a guy won the damn Pulitzer Prize or whatever for cholera, or what is it? Love in the Time of Cholera, okay? So Disarmament at the Time of Perestroika rolls off the tongue just like Love in the Time of Cholera, all right? And it's as good a writing, trust me.
It's a great book. It's a great book.
It is, but the point is, I said if we could, if this book could get published in Russia, I could come over and do a book tour that would be similar to what you're proposing, but it would have purpose and some. And I thought, I throw it out, and I thought he'd come back and say, "Yeah, thanks, no thanks. Nice try." Da da da. Son of a gun came back and went, "That's a good idea." And that guy went out and he took the book and he took it to Moscow State University, which is the big university. And he got the English department to get their best translators, and they translated the damn book for free. They just sat down because they believed in this concept. What I'm trying to impart here, people, is, and Yuri, that there are Russians.
As opposed to people, Yuri.
Well, Yuri brought his name into the mix. So
no, I know Yuri. We should ask Yuri to send us an email through a Substack and see if you want to meet Scott. And then I would like to see
Yuri in person. Jeff can tell you, I'm not this aggressive. This is just me on TV. But the point is, this project that's happening, this thing that's happening, has taken on a life of its own, not because I'm pushing for it, because people believe in it. That's what's going on here. It is literally fucking magic. I'm telling you, Jeff, I get emotional thinking about it because there are people who are bending over backwards to make this happen, not because they're going to gain, and there's no financial gain in books, guys. I mean, I'm just telling you as an author, it's very hard to make money off of a book. But the concept, the notion of an American coming to Russia to meet with Russians, to talk about these issues, it's addictive. It's like a narcotic, and people have bought into it. I can't guarantee that this trip is going to be a success, but I can tell you that it has every possibility of becoming a success because there are some amazing people over in Russia working overtime to make this work. Why? Because they believe in building bridges. They believe in shaking hands. They believe in creating the opportunity for dialogue so that our two countries can live together in peace and harmony, free of the fear of nuclear tyranny that currently exists. And so, yeah, I'm doing this, Jeff. I'm doing this because I believe in it. But it's not just that I believe in it, because that'd sort of be futile, wouldn't it, for me to bang my head against a wall? I've done it before as a Marine. You know, I got sore head, bruise on my head to prove it. But I'm doing it because it has a chance to succeed. This really does have a chance to succeed. And we have a vision. And, you know, like I said, we're going to capture this moment. We're going to try and capture this magic in Russia and bring it back to the United States and package it in a way that can be absorbed by the average American as part of the antidote to Russophobia. And if we can do this successfully, if we can get enough people excited on it, people join us on this journey, then we can turn that into not just a symbol, but a cause. I wrote about this in a recent Substack about the you know, a gesture, no matter how well-meaning, if it's a gesture in isolation, is just a gesture. Nothing happens. But if you can turn that gesture into a cause and you can get enough people to believe in it, then you can move mountains. And the mountain we have to collectively move is the mountain of nuclear tyranny, this absurd nuclear posture that the United States currently embraces that talks about the potential for preemptive nuclear war. I hope everybody listening understands what that means. That means the United States can, without provocation, literally launch nuclear weapons anytime we want. This is a policy that was created in the time of George W. Bush in the aftermath of 9/11. And Barack Obama, saying that he would walk away from it, didn't for 8 years. So the great Nobel Prize winning Barack Obama continued this policy. Donald Trump came in, and people keep saying, well, why aren't you giving Trump a chance? Well, I'll tell you one of the reasons why I don't give a chance, because Donald Trump appoints people who are lunatics and idiots. And he had a deputy secretary of defense, a guy named Trachtenberg, who said straight up, one of the purposes of our policy, hey, Yuri, listen to this, okay? Listen really carefully what I'm about to say. One of the purposes of this policy is to keep the Russians guessing whether or not we're going to preemptively launch a nuclear strike. Wow, guys. So for the 4 years of Donald Trump, our nuclear deterrence wasn't about deterring anything. It's about keeping the Russians guessing whether or not we were serious about launching a preemptive nuclear strike. That means launching nuclear weapons without cause, without justification, just bam, straight up launching them. And that's the policy of the United States. Right now, that idiot Joe Biden ran on a promise that said, I'm going to get rid of that. I believe, wait a minute, let me get some chocolate chip ice cream, because you guys are a moron. I believe that our policy should be what we call the sole purpose doctrine, that the sole purpose of nuclear weapons is to deter others from launching nuclear weapons against us, and if they do, to crush them in response. Nice, nice, nice. Except he got elected, and then he ran into what we call the establishment, or what they really call the interagency process. Now, you know, I know what the interagency is. I used to do the interagency. I used to go to the meetings where the interagency would meet, and yeah, there's a process, but the interagency's job was to coordinate policy. It did, you know, the interagency isn't elected. It's not like the American people go to the voting booth and say, I'm voting for the interagency. No, it's a standing bureaucracy populated by people that aren't voted into office. And what we found out, and I got this, Scott Ritter doesn't make shit up. Okay, I actually went to a meeting in Washington, D.C. in December where a very senior U.S. government arms control official straight up said about Joe Biden's, inability to get sole purpose into policy. He's the president of the United States. You know how you get policy in when you're president of the United States? You call people in and say, submit your goddamn letters of resignation right now. I want them all on my desk. Good. Now that I have them, guys, within a week, I want sole purpose policy to be the doctrine of the United States. Well, Mr. President, I can't. Is this your letter of resignation? Get the fuck out of here. I just fired you. Go. Next person want to doubt what I believe in? No. Good. Make it happen. But he didn't do that. The interagency wasn't ready, Mr. President. And so instead of fulfilling his promise, Joe Biden has continued this insane policy of keeping the Russians guessing whether or not we're going to preemptively attack them. We need to get Americans to wake the F up, okay? Guys, we are on the precipice of a nuclear annihilation. One mistake and it's all fucking over. And when I say all over, I mean all over. Okay, you're dead. And so how do we get this policy changed? It isn't going to change by itself because all these idiots up there, they make money off of this. That's how they fund elections. That's how we keep electing the same lunatic fringe that populates the American political spectrum. You got to do it from the bottom up. And you do it from the bottom up by getting the American people riled up. We need to get riled up about arms control because it is the single most important issue out there. I don't care whatever issue you're working on, ladies and gentlemen, it ain't going to cause the world to end, at least not now. What about climate change, Scott? Okay, let's just say climate change is a real thing. You got 20 years to fix that one. We got 2 years to fix this. Okay, so if we don't fix this, there is going to be some climate change, like 500,000 degree climate change as the whole fucking thing blows up. We got to change the way we do business with arms control. And it isn't going to happen by letting the establishment think about it. We got this great institution called Arms Control Association, and it's populated by all these former arms control people. You know what former arms control people are, ladies and gentlemen? They're members of the goddamn the interagency. That's what they are. They're guys who served in the interagency. So the interagency, the same one that stopped Joe Biden from implementing sole purpose, then leaves the interagency and they go work in the Arms Control Association, where they purport to be fans of arms control. And some of them actually go teach at places like Georgetown University or Stanford University or other institutions of higher education where they promote arms control theory. But the theory they're promoting, ladies and gentlemen, is preemptive nuclear strike. So if you're waiting for them to fix it, it ain't going to be fixed. That's why we have to cross that bridge, Yuri. I got to shake your hand. You got to help me find a way to capture the message that Americans and Russians can peacefully coexist without the specter of nuclear war hanging over their head. And then it's my job to take that message, and I thank you in advance for your assistance in helping me capture that message, back over the bridge to the United States, where we're going to try and rile the American people up so that maybe sometime in June of 2024, we can get a couple million Americans into the street, whether it's all in New York City or we spread it out on the country. I don't care. We need millions of Americans to come to the street on one day and make it clear that when they vote in November 2024, they're voting for the candidate that best articulates sound arms control policy to get rid of that goddamn policy of preemptive nuclear strike. And if you're not furious about this, then you don't count for much, do you, America? Because if you're not scared to death by the notion that we have a senile president with his hand on the trigger of a policy that talks about preemptive nuclear strike, what will scare you? What does scare you? What do you care about? So we got to do this. We got to do this. This is why I'm excited about this trip, Jeff, because this is a trip that can change a lot of things. I'm not saying that I'm Van Cliburn. That guy was great. He's a legend and all that. I'm saying that I'm discovering my inner Van Cliburn. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to try and do something. And by doing that, maybe set an example that other people can follow, because this is not something that can be done by one person. Scott Ritter can't do this by himself. Fact is, this is something that's got to be picked up by people and run, and people are going to have to run with this that are, above my pay grade. Joe Biden was right. I'm batting above my pay grade right now, guys. Okay, I'm some dude in Del Mar, New York, who has a vision, who's trying to implement something. But, I need help. I need a lot of help. We all need help. This has to be teamwork. We have to be part of a team that's trying to accomplish this thing together. It's a journey that one person can't take by himself or herself. It's a journey we all have to take together. And so, Yuri, please keep the bridge open, because Americans need to cross that bridge. I'm going to come across that bridge. And hopefully by doing so, we can create a system where more Americans come across that bridge, and you can come across the bridge to America, and we can expand this bridge until it becomes a massive super highway of goodwill between our nations, and we'll no longer be able to empower politicians to think that preemptive nuclear strike is sound policy and instead recognize it as insanity. And therefore, once you realize it's insane, maybe the nuclear weapons that you were going to use in this preemptive strike are no longer necessary. And then we can get into this thing called disarmament. Now, I know there's a trust issue here, Yuri. You are right not to trust our government. I don't trust my government. I don't trust them. This is why it has to change. This is why people like Robert F. Kennedy are so important. Whether or not he can become president, we don't know. There's a lot of time between now and then. But he is going to shake up the debate, the political debate. Tulsi Gabbard, if she throws her hat in the ring, could shake up this political debate. Dennis Kucinich is a good man. If he threw his hat in the ring, he could shake up this political debate. Jimmy Dore, I know he's a comedian, and people are like, well, he's a comedian. Well, goddamn, Ronald Reagan was a freaking actor, and he became the president of the United States, and he signed the INF Treaty. So, let's not. And the thing about comedians is, gosh, you listen to people like George Carlin and you realize that through humor comes wisdom. And Jimmy Dore is speaking truth right now. He is speaking truth. He's just slamming it out there. So let's not throw Jimmy Dore under the bus. He has things to say, and he has a vehicle to say it that makes it approachable by people. So maybe being a comedian is a good thing in this day and age. But my point is, those are 4 voices I just said that must be given a chance to be heard. Whether or not one or more of those voices will rise above and become politically viable, we don't know, but we have to give them a chance. Otherwise, we're stuck with Joe Biden and the establishment and Donald Trump, who fucked it all up to begin with. So that's not fair. Really, he got out of the INF Treaty. All right? He got out of the INF Treaty, the best goddamn treaty ever signed. And I'm a little bit prejudiced here because that was the treaty that started it all. And I was the first inspector on the ground in the Soviet Union implementing that treaty. So yeah, I take it a little bit personal. But that's the treaty that started it all. That was the foundational treaty. That's where trust but verify comes in. And you want to ask the Russians why they don't trust us anymore? Why would you trust the nation that started something based on the premise of trust but verify and then pulled out of it for no goddamn reason? Would you trust them? I wouldn't. Yuri, you have a point, buddy. I'm on your side.
Finally, Yuri won you over. You talked yourself into agreeing with Yuri.
That's why I want to shake his hand. I want to go and shake Yuri's hand.
I predict that Yuri will be one of the stars of the film, and I want to see footage of him giving you flowers like we saw Van Cliburn.
Yuri's going to knock my teeth out. What are you talking about?
Now, the difference between this film that we're going to make and Van Cliburn is the footage won't be grainy. That was in the 1950s. So we're going to see some crystal clear footage of Yuri presenting you with flowers, and I want to see the two of you embracing. And forget about your homophobia. Put it aside.
Yeah,
this is about being human.
Jeff, you and me, and you got this fetish about me embracing guys. It goes all the way back to Southern Methodist University. I've got,
All right, let's take some questions live. Ann Moss, thank you. You're curating and also inserting the comments. Thank you. Doing a great job. Bamin Habibi, thanks for the donation. Scott, I've noticed that the Zelensky regime, speaking of comedians who can rise to the top of politics, is quite a young group. Is this by coincidence, or has Zelensky just put all his buddies in top government positions?
Very good question. What I can say is that when Zelensky started as president, he had a different group of people surrounding him, and then he failed. His presidency failed tremendously. And so he responded by firing these people and bringing in people he trusted, people totally unqualified for the job, people who were with him on tour as a comedian, fellow cocaine snorters, whatever. Brought him in. I said that as a joke because I have no proof that he does that. So I apologize.
Alleged cocaine snorters.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone there anyways. That's just, gosh, every once in a while.
When you speak extraneously, you will say imperfect things. So we allow.
I did just say something imperfect, so I apologize for that. Because the reason why I'm apologizing for it is that we're having a serious conversation here. And what I don't want to do is throw something in the mix that allows people to attack the message by saying that was a cheap blow. So if we could edit this, we'd beat that one out. But
just pretend you didn't hear that, folks. Just
pretend you didn't hear that part. That was just me being a little glib. But the point is, he surrounded himself with people who were not up to the task, and many of these people are of his age group or younger. They're not the establishment. And in Ukraine, I mean, this may not be a bad thing because the establishment is corrupt as hell. But these guys are corrupt as hell too. They're all corrupt as hell. But now we come to the reality. in order for me to answer this question definitively, I'd actually have to spend a lot of time breaking down his entourage.
Entourage.
Thank you.
By the way, I just misspoke. I said when you speak extraneously. I meant to say when you speak extemporaneously.
But I understood you, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for not correcting me and letting me correct myself. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. But my point is, I'd actually have to break down his cabinet structure and his advisory structure and do the research into their backgrounds just to make sure that what I think is right is in fact right. So I got some research to do to give you a more thorough answer on that, Mr. Habibi.
Caleb Maupin, also in the cabinet. Did you see that one?
Caleb. Well, I tell you what, that communist son of a bitch, I'll take Caleb any day of the week because he's out there working. He's struggling. He's doing the job. I mean, I don't know if you saw my presentation that I gave to CPI when I was in Washington, D.C.
You talking to me?
Yeah. I'm talking,
who else would you be talking? Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I joke about, CPI standing for the Communist Party International. I mean, these guys really had me freaked out with their communist symbology, but they're the hardest working communists I've ever met. And the stuff they're working for are things that I can identify as a Republican. So let's forget the labels and let's talk about the substance. And Caleb Maupin and his group are as pro-American people as you can get. They're doing the right thing. And
did you just call yourself a Republican?
I did.
Oh, okay, just checking.
Are you disowning me? Is our friendship over?
No, you said you don't want labels. At the same time, you simultaneously.
So you're basically exposing my inner hypocrisy. Okay. Touche, Jeff.
I mean, you I don't know. Seriously, you sometimes label yourself in a way, but then some of the specifics seem to conflict with the label. Here you are touting Robert F. Kennedy, for example, Dennis Kucinich, and Tulsi Gabbard. You go, hey, I'm a Republican. That's an inconsistency.
Yeah, but
it's not like a bad thing. It's a good thing, but I don't just like.
Well, no, not really, because you got to understand, I'm a Reagan Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know some people are going, that's even worse.
But what's the point of even using that label? What's the use for it?
Because it's true, Jeff. I came into political maturity in the time of Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. I can't walk away from that. I can't pretend it didn't happen. It's absolutely true. And, but the thing I know about Ronald Reagan.
Does it have relevance nowadays, though?
Yeah, because Ronald Reagan could sit down with Tip O'Neill and come up with a compromise.
No, but so is there a Reagan Republican now?
No.
Okay. Thank you for thinking about it so carefully.
I had to think about it. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Even though dead air, they frown upon dead air in the world of broadcasting.
Sometimes dead air is good. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's real. Yeah.
Everything about me is real.
According to a report by the U.S. Office of Defense and Suicide Prevention, 139 U.S. personnel committed suicide from April to June 2021. Your thoughts, Scott?
It's a tragic number. I mean, one suicide's one too many.
But I'm not sure what U.S. personnel means. This means active duty military, or what does U.S. personnel mean?
I mean, if you say U.S. personnel, you're implying that the person who died was a U.S. in active service at that, as opposed to a veteran. Because I think the number that they're talking about veteran suicides is 22 a day or something like that. So if you just do 22 a day and you count those days up, it's more than 139. So I think this is more like 139 active duty personnel. It's a high number, and I like everybody else struggles with why this is the case. Suicide has always been a thing. I know when I was in the Marines back in the 1980s, we had Marines commit suicide. A guy gets a Dear John letter from his girlfriend, and he's distraught, and he gets drunk, and next thing you know, boom, dead. And we probably weren't as good as we should have been back then and identified these things. We wrapped ourselves in this macho, I'm tough, I don't need to talk about it kind of approach, and you suppress all this stuff, and every once in a while, it got out of control and guys would take their lives.
But doesn't the military, not to minimize it, but just to be more accurate, doesn't the military attract people to some extent who are already damaged, meaning that maybe the suicide is not necessarily attributable to the military service?
Well, I like to believe the military attracts people who are actually undamaged, perfect specimens of American malehood who stand tall on a wall and protect everybody else from the demons that lurk outside. Why would you be damaged to join the military? A war can damage you. I mean,
because that's what humanity is. Humanity includes people who are damaged.
Well, then all people are damaged.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't trying to say that the military tracks them in particular. I'm just saying that's included.
Yeah, but my question therefore is, what's the equivalent civilian suicide rate? Is it does it trend on par? I mean, that number seen in isolation implies that 139 out of a total force structure of over a million.
My point. That's my point. It may not be attributable to the military.
Yeah, so now we move it. But I think the thing is, the military as a community. The thing about, if you use America as a whole, we're dealing with a whole range of social economic issues, a whole range of things. So, but with the military, it's a more homogeneous, or supposed to be a more homogeneous insular society. And so if you have these spikes in suicide, that means there's something wrong with this society. What's going on? Is it a people problem? Are we recruiting the wrong people? One of the things that I think is happening now is that there's a back when the two great posters when I was running when I was running for Marine Corps, it wasn't an election, it was a selection. But we had two posters. One was "We never promised you a rose garden." It's a classic poster with a Marine drill instructor right in the face of this recruit who's like this, and it's meaning that you join the Marine Corps, it's going to suck. We didn't promise you a rose garden, and so that's their recruiting poster. So now you're some kid saying, "I want to join the military," and you got the Army, "Be all that you can be." You got the Navy, "See the world." You got the Air Force, "Fly high." You got the Marine Corps, "We didn't promise you a rose garden." You go, I want that. I want the guy in my face basically screaming at me. And so I think we attracted people that were tough, and all that. So that's why I'd be surprised about that number, because the whole Marine system was designed to create a resilient, durable, indestructible, at least notionally, specimen. But today, that's not what people are signing up for. They're signing up for other reasons, and so I think we're getting a different kind of person that might not be, when they join the military. I think another problem with the military is we have a society that spends their lives on this, and as a result, there's not the human interaction skills that previously existed when you didn't have this. I used to have to leave the house and go out and find people to make friends with and play with them, as opposed to just sitting there on a phone. I think we have people that don't have these skill sets, and then they're thrown into a military environment that stresses them, and and then they maybe the military continues to have a problem with identifying. I know the military has a lot of suicide prevention programs, but like everything in the military, if it's not geared to the specific mission, it's sort of, we talk about it, but we don't really want to do it, kind of thing. We need our numbers to be good. We're not really going to give you all the leave that we say you should have, because then we're not going to have the numbers that make me look good for my promotion, things of that nature. I don't know. There's that number in and of itself. I think Captain Ron said it right. We
Let's
need
verify it.
Yeah, we need not only to verify the number, but we need to also dig into the meaning behind that number. I mean, are all the suicides the same, or who knows?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It's a tragedy no matter what.
Suicide anyway. So that's what I'm saying. All right, let's take one more question. Henok Halimariam. Whatever you do, and don't pick anybody whose name is pronounceable. I need to be challenged. Do you see some hope between North and South Koreas with the help of China in a near future?
I tell you what, man, China is surprising the living dog poop out of everybody. I love it. I love it that William Burns, the CIA director, had to admit the CIA director, the director of the CIA, that's the Central Intelligence Agency. One of the things they're supposed to do is collect intelligence so that we don't get taken by surprise by anything. It's the whole idea of the CIA to begin with. It's not really supposed to be just about regime change and assassinations and all this. It's supposed to be about collecting intelligence so we have early warning so that our policymakers can understand what's about to happen. Then we can create policy that responds effectively to that. And yet China went to Saudi Arabia and Iran and got them to make peace. And as a result, we're locked out. See, we were creating this thing called the war game. And the Chinese came in and said, we want to play the peace game. And Saudi Arabia went, we like that game better. And they met with the Iranians and it's moving. And William Burns said, this took us by surprise. Imagine being the director of the CIA and having to admit that one of the events that, believe it or not, America, if you haven't woke up to this fact, the world has changed a lot because of this, because the Middle East will never be the same. Peace is breaking out all over and China's responsible for that. Taiwan, I'm going to get to Korea in a second. Don't worry, I'm not ignoring your question. Taiwan, we have Kevin McCarthy and I don't know who's this idiot member of the House Intelligence Committee out there saying stupid things about, coming to the defense, making it a fortress, strengthening it. And of course, that's going to generate some sort of response from the Chinese who, sailed an aircraft carrier over there and floated around a little bit. But what the Chinese are really doing is inviting the opposition party, Kuomintang party, to come over to China, do a tour. Everybody is thinking about how to peacefully coexist. The Chinese are in the peace business. That's what they're doing. So now we come to the Koreas. North Korea feels pretty much betrayed by the South right now. North Korea, Kim Jong-un had bought into the notion of working with Donald Trump to achieve some sort of peace agreement that would be predicated on denuclearization, but also predicated on the cessation of hostilities that would create the potential for investment in North Korea to help their economy and help the people. And I know people are going, it's a dictatorship, you can do whatever you want. No, he actually had to take that message to the North Korean leadership, and then they had to basically sell that message to the North Korean people. And so everybody was on board with this, and then basically got screwed by not only Donald Trump, but then Joe Biden, who's supposed to be the reasonable man, came in and just ignored North Korea. And not just ignored, we now are, for instance, having these exercises where, 60 airplanes are flying straight at the North Korean border. And, once you cross the border, within minutes, they'll be at Pyongyang, the capital. And some of these aircraft are
nuclear. You say you also got screwed by Trump?
Yeah.
How?
Because Trump set them up thinking there was going to be a denuclearization program. And then Trump, caved into Mike Pompeo and John Bolton and dropped out of it.
I see.
It wasn't North Korea that dropped out. It was the United States. It was Donald Trump. Donald Trump had a conversation with Kim Jong-un where they exchanged, and they were ready to do this. And John Bolton and Mike Pompeo stabbed him in the back in Hanoi. And the North Koreans are like, we came all the way down here on our magic train and for this. And then he gave one last chance. He said, we'll go up and we'll go to the DMZ. I'll invite Donald Trump to jump over. It'd be nice. We'll go sit down and talk. But again, stabbed in the back by his national security team. And you can judge people by the people they surround themselves with. So when Donald Trump surrounds himself with Mike Pompeo and, John Bolton, that tells you a lot about Donald Trump. He's a weak man who has a lot of bluster, but when it comes time to actually put put the meat on the table,
but is there an argument that he had to some, or at least it's arguable that he had to include in his inner circle some of the deep state types to, that old saying, keep your enemies closer sort of a thing?
No, that's not a good argument at all. No. Why in God's name would you put an asshole as your national security advisor?
I don't know.
I would have preferred that he put Jared Kushner as his national security advisor, because at least Jared would be working on Team Trump. But he put John Bolton, who didn't like Donald Trump to begin with.
Right,
the man who straight up said, I'm going to stab you in the frickin' back. And then he stabbed him in the back. He took my
I know how it played out. I guess I was thinking maybe it could have gone in the other direction too. Maybe that's what Trump was thinking. I don't know.
No, you don't do that. Nobody says I'm going to pick a Secretary of State who's against my policies on the notion that I have to keep them close. Fuck it. Let Mike Pompeo rot in wherever he comes, in Kansas. Let him go to Kansas and walk around and eat whatever Kansas people eat and get fatter. But Donald Trump should have brought in somebody to be a Secretary of State that actually said, I'm here to implement the policy that my president is telling me to implement. I'm on Team Trump. Get a national security advisor who says, boss, I'm here for you. I'm here to protect you from all the bad stuff in the world, to give you sage advice, to get your vision into policy.
So all his rhetoric about the deep state, you think that that's just bullshit, or you think there's some more complicated explanation for why on one hand he does seem to be a threat to the deep state, but on the other hand he includes some of these characters? What's the reason for that?
Well, I think the reason is Donald Trump opens his mouth and says things, but then when it comes time to actually have the balls to follow through, he doesn't follow through. That Donald Trump at the end of the day isn't the man that everybody thinks he is. He could have said no on many occasions, and he didn't say no. Right. And then afterwards, after something happens, then he comes in, he opens his mouth and tries to spin it to mean something. But I don't want to hear spin, Donald. I want to hear actual. Why didn't you tell John Bolton to jump off a goddamn cliff? Why in Hanoi, when John Bolton came up and whispered your ear, why didn't you turn around and say, get on the fucking airplane, get out of here, you're fired? And if John Bolton wants to go on TV, then you send the FBI and you arrest him because you said you signed a non-disclosure agreement, you cowardly prick. You're not allowed to talk about anything. That's a violation of presidential confidentiality. I'm putting your ass in jail. That's what a president does. That's what a real man does. That's what a leader does. You say something, you stand for it, you defend it within the framework of the law. John Bolton comes in thinking he's John Bolton and he can do anything he wants. And guess what? He did anything he wanted to do. He stabbed the president in the back. Then he came out and he published a goddamn book that contained classified information, and he didn't pay a price. And that's because Donald Trump is a coward at the end of the day. A coward. Talks big, does little. He had a chance to save the North Korean situation. I give Donald Trump all the kudos in the world for saying, I'm going to go sit down with Kim Jong-un. That's one of the greatest things any president has done in recent time. That is a Nixon goes to China moment kind of thing. Good stuff, Donald. You had me. You won me. It's like the old, Jerry Maguire. You had me at hello there. I love you. We were there, Donald, you and I, same team. I bought your goddamn coin. Remember the one you printed up with your face and Kim Jong-un about the great thing? And everybody's saying that's a joke, that's you. I said, no, I believe in this. I bought the frickin' coin because I thought this was one of the greatest moments in modern history. I thought you were going to do it, Donald. You should have done it. You could have done it, but you didn't because you don't have the balls to fire people who disagree with you. You had that great TV show, but it turns out that was all scripted. You're fired. Well, when it came time to count, when Mike Pompeo went, you should have said, wrong answer, Mike. You're fired. Get out. That's what America wanted. You got put in the White House to clean out the swamp. And I know it's tough to surround yourself with people when you don't have the experience in the swamp. You have to bring people in, but don't bring the fucking swamp monster. Don't bring the swamp monster in because he's going to behave like the swamp monster. That's the reality. You brought in Mike Pompeo, you brought in John Bolton, and then you were shocked when they betrayed you and stabbed you in the back. No, Donald. You bring in somebody who thinks like you, and you're the president of the United States. You can do whatever you want to do as long as it's within the framework of the law, especially with National Security Advisor. Why in God's name did you pick the people you picked? There were so many better candidates out there, people that would have come in and helped you to achieve your job. But that's not what happened. Right. Well, H.R. McMaster, why? John Bolton, why?
You didn't go into any detail when you were speaking favorably about Tulsi Gabbard and Dennis Kucinich and Bobby Kennedy. How do you think any of these people would be in this way that you're judging Trump? Do you think they would stand up to these characters?
I think Tulsi Gabbard has a better grip on national security affairs than Donald Trump will ever have. That could be her downfall because, again, one of the beauties of Donald Trump is that he didn't give a flying F when it came to North Korea. But I have to remind people that we didn't just get the North Korea denuclearization, as the first step. He got up in front of the Security Council of the United Nations and threatened fire and fury. He threatened to go to nuclear war against North Korea. That's Donald Trump. That's scary shit. We don't want that, ladies and gentlemen. A president of the United States should never be threatening nuclear war with anybody. Never, ever, ever, ever. And yet he did that. And I'll give it to the North Koreans. They told him to pound sand, fuck off, die. But then the North Koreans did something that was pretty cool. They went to the South Korean Winter Olympics, and they started what was called the Olympic diplomacy. Kim Jong-un sent his sister there, and they began the process of working directly with the South Koreans. And then because the South Koreans were now on board, the South Koreans went to the United States and said, hey, we think there's an opportunity here. And now Donald Trump went, oh, you think there's an opportunity? I want some of that. And that's where Trump did the right thing. He realized that fire and fury is bullshit. It didn't work. Maybe he didn't realize that. I don't know what's going on in Donald Trump's mind. But he did realize that a window of opportunity had opened up that nobody else was willing to do. He's listening to everybody saying, no, 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 no. And he's going, why not? Why no? Why not? Yes, let's do it. So they go to Singapore. And he meets with Kim Jong-un, and he realizes that this guy's not the demon everybody's put him out to be, that you can have a conversation with this guy, that he's a human being. Again, Yuri, he went over the bridge.
Yuri's the new star.
Right, Yuri, you started it. You got me going. But the point is, Donald Trump did something, but he should have followed through. He would have been, this was his Ronald Reagan moment. Who thought Ronald Reagan was going to sign the INF treaty with Mikhail Gorbachev? Who thought that Ronald Reagan was capable of doing that? But he did it. He did it. He made it happen. Donald Trump should have followed through. That's the thing. That's the failure. He should have done it. And he didn't.
Well, you present a very convincing argument. I don't disagree. But here we are with, this lawfare being waged against Trump, and it makes me want to defend him based on that. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I don't know how many Democrats are doing it intentionally because they think he's a weak candidate and they actually want to prop him up so he is the candidate, and then they think he'll lose against Biden. I'm not sure how diabolical they're thinking or how many of them are thinking that way. But I just can't help myself. That's how I feel. I just think that this idea of punishing people who are your political adversaries is a mindset that we can't tolerate.
No, look, Jeff, if the only, well, here, now, this is where I got in trouble last week. I really don't want to encourage the, the trolls out there. But on the one hand, Donald Trump has shown the potential to think outside the box when it comes to nuclear disarmament issues. And Joe Biden is incapable of thinking out of the box. And if we're going to say that the 2024 election is about nuclear disarmament, and those are the only two choices that are out there, I guess as long as Trump can convince me that he's solid constitutionally, I still have some problems with him on that. And I can't put a president in power that I can't be part of a process that puts a guy in power that apparently has total disregard for the Constitution. But then again, you look at Joe Biden, you're like, well, Nord Stream, Scott, Nord Stream. No shit. We've got problems.
Look at these prosecutors, though. Look at the mindset of the
They're
people.
horrible. They're horrible. Jeff, I know about prosecutors. Okay, you're preaching to the choir here. They are corrupt.
Not only the prosecutors, but ordinary people too. It's unbelievable. I've said it. The word that I keep using is pornographic. The amount, the degree of ecstasy that people are feeling about Trump being punished when he hasn't actually committed any crime, so far as we can tell.
No,
it's not something that we can tolerate.
But I think that I agree, and I will personally support Donald Trump throughout this process, meaning that I want these charges dropped. I want Trump's record. I want Trump to emerge from this. But that's different from saying he should be president of the United States.
It is, but it's hard to separate the two.
Right, and it's very hard to separate them when the only two names on the ticket are Biden and Trump.
Because they are taking him down because he's a political threat. So to stick up for him yet not vote for him, it's kind of a weird thing,
I don't think so. I don't think it's a weird thing. I think it's sticking up for him where it's right to stick up for him. But President of the United States is different than being falsely accused. This is why I really I'm excited by Bobby Kennedy Jr. I'm really excited about that. I think that this is a good man. I think he
I'm curious. Let's see.
And if Bobby Kennedy, this might be his time, because if there was any real viable candidate out there, I mean, I don't know.
By the way, this conversation we're having now is why you were so right the other day when we were talking about making the film, getting funding for the film outside of the nonprofit world, so we can advocate for political people that we like. So you were absolutely right.
Oh, I forgot. Am I allowed to advocate like this on this show?
No, I think that we just have to just go for it. I'm saying
I wrote an article that got published in Consortium News, and I had written it very strongly in support of Bobby Kennedy, and Joe Lauria, who I have the highest respect for, I think had to soften my language a little bit, because I think that Consortium News can't be seen as advocating for a candidate.
Right. And that's why, remember when we were talking about this the other day, you said, well, forget it. You don't want to be restrained.
No.
Remember, I said, let's talk about it. And I was like, in my mind, imagining a long conversation, and you brought it down to about 10 seconds. And then afterwards, I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? He's right. I'm almost ready to just dissolve the nonprofit, actually, because I don't want to be restrained either. When you're a nonprofit, you have to, comply with the rules, and the rules are, it's very limited on how much political advocacy you can do. They call it lobbying,
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you no one's paying me to lobby, Jeff, because if I were,
no, I know it's a different word. Yeah, the word is
usually do more harm than good.
The word is usually used in a different way, but if you look at the IRS definition of it, that's what they call it.
Yeah, we don't want any IRS trouble.
So let's forget about the nonprofit world, and if we want to support a nonprofit, we can still do it, but then we won't be restrained by it. So what do you know about RFK? I mean, how much do you know about the various positions that he might have?
Well, I know an awful lot. This isn't my first rodeo. He and I were, I was.
Well, I wouldn't mean to suggest it was your first rodeo. So tell us what.
No, I mean, I dealt with him a long time ago in the lead up to the Iraq War. He took the right position then, and I was impressed with him. I'll be honest. He's an environmental lawyer. Not my thing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. There's a lot of things that aren't my thing that are very good, but I can't sit here and pretend that I can't talk in a knowing fashion about environmental law. He can. I trust his judgment. I trust his thinking. And so if he's going to say things about the environment, I would say, okay, well, I mean, I'm inclined to say that he probably knows what he's talking about. But again, trust but verify, do the homework. I know that he very controversial positions on vaccine, especially in relation to COVID. Turns out he was right. I mean, it was controversial early on, but it was poison, and it didn't do anything, and it destroyed.
It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out now.
Yeah, but my whole thing is, I hope that the conversation that I had with him, he talked about the legacy of his uncle, and he talked about the decisions that his uncle had to make, standing up to
you
the
keep
CIA.
saying his uncle. What does he ever talk about his father?
Well, he was talking about his uncle in this conversation. His uncle was the president of the United States. His father wasn't the president of the United States. So we're talking about a man who's positioned himself to run for the president of the United States. So that
would be a reason. Yeah, if you're just focusing on the presidency, I understand.
But he just talked about the CIA. I mean, basically Jack Kennedy should have dissolved the CIA. It was one of the things that he, after the Bay of Pigs debacle, he's like, why does this agency even exist? And maybe somebody put down there, they killed him. Maybe they did. We don't know. But my point is, this is a man who is very intelligent, very deliberative. I really look forward to watching him develop as a candidate, and I look forward to him developing his various positions, and I especially want to hear him talk about arms control, because again, I mean, as much as I like Bobby Kennedy and as much as I think he would be a great president, at the end of the day, if he doesn't have the kind of arms control vision that I think is necessary to save the world, that means that we have to talk about resuming serious arms control with the Russians. We have to talk about meaningful disarmament. We have to talk about dealing with the Russians as equals. Everything is reciprocal. No more seeking to negotiate for unilateral advantage. And I think he's going to do that because he talked again about the role his uncle played in the Cuban Missile Crisis and bringing down that threat. So I'm optimistic, and I see a lot of people sitting there saying that he's not going to win. You're probably right. I mean, conventional wisdom would say that, but let me just put the following out here. When you have a man that's stumbling towards senility, and you have a man that has unbelievable baggage, you create a window of opportunity. There are going to be a significant number of voters on both parties who aren't going to be happy about either one of these candidates. Now, if it becomes a battle between one candidate and the other, of course, America will become polarized, and the gravitation of each one of these personalities will bring people to them. But if RFK Jr. comes in there, or somebody else, Dennis Kucinich or Tulsi Gabbard, or maybe the three of them can come together and form some sort of a wonderful coalition.
What if one of those were to be on the ticket with Trump as the VP? Do you think that is something that could ever happen?
That's up to Don. The problem about Donald Trump, Jeff, is he has an ego that's the biggest thing in the world. Donald Trump's not going to share the stage with anybody.
That might be the case, yeah.
And so, I actually think that this has created a window of opportunity, and if the right candidate can fill that gap, and create a center of gravity of themselves, they can attract enough voters from the left and the right to create this center mass that could be viable in the election. But here's another thing: someone said, "Well, he's never going to beat." All RFK has to do is get on the debate stage with a Joe Biden and begin the discussion about arms control. Ask the questions, take it to the American people. And if we can get enough American people to agree that this is a top issue, there we go. And then he takes that on the stage with Trump, because I don't think the Republicans have anybody who can beat Donald Trump, especially the more the Democrats keep trying to indict this guy. The more
people will rally around him, like what I was saying before.
Yeah, I think right now he's a shoo-in for the Republican nomination.
And Coulter just wrote a column saying that, well, this is what the Democrats want. They're doing this intentionally to prop him up so that he's the candidate. And
are they that smart?
Well, that's what I question. The answer to that question is definitely some of them are and some of them aren't. How many? I don't know. Maybe not that many.
Anyways, I'm excited about Bobby Kennedy jumping in the ring, because I think
I'm excited that we're liberated. We're liberated. So let's dispense with the nonprofit obligation and enable ourselves to talk about this. We're liberated in the sense of no longer kowtow. You never were, but I was a little bit deferential to Elon Musk. We are now totally liberated, and we could be censored by every platform tomorrow. And so my
nice talking to you guys. It's a pleasure. Yuri,
if they don't cut off our phone service, we can at least say it to each other on the phone. All right, next week, I just want to remind you, Scott, my local power company is turning off my electricity next Tuesday. So we were saying maybe do it on Wednesday. Is that still good for you for next week instead of Tuesday?
Yes, and also on Friday, I am going to be traveling locally for the day, but I may not be able to guarantee an 8 o'clock return.
Okay.
So we either would do it Thursday or we would do it Saturday.
Okay. I don't think we have to decide right this minute, but right.
I'm Jeff. You know me. I'm Team Jeff, baby. Whatever Team Jeff says.
I'm Team Scott.
Boy,
I'm my inner Van Cliburn.
There you discovered it.
All right. Well, since the next episode would normally be Tuesday, let's make a commitment to that. So we're going to do it on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, right? Okay.
And then on Wednesday we'll decide what we're going to do for the other one.
or sometime between now and then.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ann Moss. Thank you to our beloved audience. Tune into Scenes from the Evolution this Sunday. It happens to be Easter Sunday. We are going to have a fun and interesting show, I think, about pranks. You remember Jose Vega, the gentleman who was at the in the Elgin bar and was
Was that a prank?
That wasn't a prank, but that is an element to him. He's a provocateur, and sometimes you can call it a prank. He just confronted Nancy Pelosi. And we have footage of that. We're going to have him on and talk about some of his antics. He's confronted about 15 different politicians over the last few months.
Oh, it's awesome to watch.
Yeah. The one that got the most play was AOC. So we're going to show some of this footage and then just talk about what, the attitude behind it all, the reason he does it. So I think it'll be fun. I'm a bit of a prankster too. I've done a bunch of hidden camera pranks in the past. I've confronted Donald Rumsfeld before, and I almost got killed by the security. So he and I have something to talk about. So check us out Sunday at 1 p.m., Scenes from the Evolution. And we'll be back with Scott next Wednesday instead of Tuesday. Take care, everybody.